Hello, my name is Leah. I am literally so excited to be filming this video right now because I spent so long searching for videos about the beta reading process / between draft process, and I found a lot, but I just didn't find exactly what I was looking for. I wanted something that took me from start to finish of like the whole process to see how the heck you take a draft and somehow from that divine all of the things that need to be changed in order to have like a comprehensive and organized game plan to start the next draft. So that is what I'm here to talk to you about today, is to share with you how I got from point A to point B, how I took my draft 1 and did all of the things that need to be done and am now working on my draft 2 with like probably the best plan I've ever had, the best outline I've ever had. Obviously this process probably won't work for everyone, and I have a feeling that's why there aren't as many videos about like the whole thing, because everyone's brains work differently, and we all know in writing that there's no right or wrong way to do something. As long as you are writing the story you want to write, as long as you're happy with the process that you have, that's all that matters. I also went into a little bit of detail about my process in a vlog clip recently, but I asked you guys if you would rather me have that in a vlog to make a longer vlog, or if you'd rather have that clip here to have a more in-depth video about this topic, and you guys wanted it here, so please excuse Leah with the wet hair. She was just doing her thing, eating lunch. She had no idea she was about to get put in a video of her own and not a vlog. So she's a little bit underdressed, but it's okay. We will be kind to her and welcome her into this video. I was searching like all over the internet trying to find someone talking about their revision process that made sense for the way that my brain works. And pretty much all the videos that I was finding was the typical set the draft aside for a while, read through it, take notes as you go, but don't change anything, and then you can organize those notes, but no one ever actually shared how they organized their notes, and then just focus on one thing at a time, like character or world building or plot. And well, I find that approach very valuable, especially that like focused in drafting thing. It has been incredibly difficult when I've tried to do this in the past to separate a note into a particular category. Like my brain just cannot comprehend one thing being unrelated from everything else. Like everything in the world building, it affects character, it affects plot. Everything about the plot affects character. It's supposed to be a demonstration of the character growth. The character is like inextricable from the plot because they're the ones who are doing the actions. And so that's not to say that I'm sitting here thinking, oh, my brain's just so different. Like my stories are just so interwoven that I can't separate things out. That's not the case at all. I just am meaning I find it difficult to approach revisions in that way. And that's something I struggled hugely with going from draft 0 to draft 1. I kind of didn't really take notes as I did my read through because my brain couldn't categorize things the way that a lot of the advice I was seeing was telling me to. And I ended up just kind of making a new outline with what I felt like should happen. I was kind of just going off of gut feelings in changes that I wanted to make rather than being as intentional about it and organized with it. As many of you know, earlier this year I was working on a draft 1 of Project Shadows, which is my first revision. It's bringing it from draft 0 to draft 1, but near the end I was getting kind of discouraged about the draft, so I set it aside to work on other things. But in September I picked up Project Shadows again with the intention of finishing draft 1, getting it to beta readers, and then moving on with the next revision. So I get to the end of draft 1. What is the first thing that I need to do with this draft? Actually, nothing at all. The first thing that I need to do is prep for beta readers, because there's some thought that goes into this. You can't just hand off your book to some random people and hope for the best. You want to be very specific with the way that you talk with them about it, with the questions that you ask them, in order to get the feedback that you want. So step 1, you find your beta readers. I used 5, and the way that I found them was they were all my friends. So I'm not going to be a ton of help with finding beta readers who are not already friends with you or in a relationship with you, but this was just how I went about it. 3 of those beta readers were friends from college. All of them had some sort of background in reading. I knew they had all read young adult fantasy before and were somewhat familiar with the genre. Some of them did write as well, but that wasn't really the key for these 3 at least. And then my other 2 beta readers were both writing friends who I have met on YouTube. They both also write fantasy, and I wanted to send it to at least 2 book writer friends to have that perspective as well. If you don't have people in real life that you would want to send your draft to, I really would recommend just getting involved with online writer spaces, and not just with the intent of mining for beta readers, but with the intent of actually engaging with those people, making friends with those people. I did not join YouTube thinking, oh, in the future, I'm going to need beta readers for my books. I got involved because I just like writing and wanted to talk to people about it, and in the process of that have made some friends on here. And so when the time came for me to need beta readers, I felt comfortable asking some of them to do that for me, because we've also traded work before. I'm familiar with their writing, they're familiar with mine. Just don't expect to hand a stranger a full draft and to get the feedback that you want, to maybe get it back on time, because they might not do that. You don't know if they're trustworthy to do that or not. And I don't know, I just wouldn't feel comfortable giving my draft to a full-on stranger. So I've got my list of beta readers. The next thing I needed to do was figure out what questions I'm going to be asking them. How am I going to be getting the feedback? I already knew I wanted to use Google Forms to kind of collect that feedback, just because I thought it was going to be a really straightforward and easy way to keep all of that stuff organized and an easy way to communicate those questions. And as I was researching what sort of stuff to ask, what sort of stuff to look for from your beta readers, I found this video by Lindsay Puckett, which I will link down below. Literally just watched the video because I basically just copied everything, with some changes obviously to make it fit for my story, but genuinely my surveys that I sent my beta readers are just her surveys, so go watch the video if you want to know what I did there. I ended up making 4 surveys, kind of each checking in around a particular plot beat. So the break into Act 2, the midpoint, the break into Act 3, and then the end of the book. So this last one covered Act 3 plus thoughts about the book as a whole. And then I pasted a link to those surveys into the draft where I wanted my beta readers to fill them out. That way, as they're reading, they see the link and they're like, okay, time to take a survey. At the beginning of these conversations, I told my beta readers that I wanted to be able to start a draft 2 in mid to late November. So I gave them about a month and a half to read the full book. That way they had a timeline, they knew like what my plans were, and it wasn't just kind of this nebulous, indefinite thing. 2 of my beta readers finished the full draft, and then 3 of them finished a quarter to half of the draft, which I was not upset by at all. I was happy to get any feedback. I'm asking them to do this for me for free, and I did not want to be a burden in any way, so I did check in to like gauge some progress, but I never, or at least I don't think I ever, pressured them to like feel like they had to reach the end. But that is something to keep in mind for your process if you are doing beta readers. Most likely, not all of them are going to finish it. And that's something that I did see in a lot of the videos I was watching and the articles I was reading. Keep that in mind, and so don't just give it to 1 or 2 people unless you know that those people are 100% going to finish it. 5 felt like a really good number to me. It was a good mix of people, and it was a good mix of how far they were able to get into the draft. But in the meantime, while they were doing that, I basically just worked on other things. And that's really all you can do while you're waiting for feedback. It might be a good time to pick up a new project. I personally was working on freelance work at the time, but just because beta readers have your draft doesn't mean that you are stuck doing nothing. We're moving along in the progress. We've got our beta readers, we've sent them the draft, and now they've got back to us with our feedback. The moment we've all been waiting for. Around mid-November was when this happened for me, where I felt like I was getting the notes that I wanted and needed, and felt comfortable to start prepping for a draft 2 with those notes. And specifically about the notes, just to clarify, I was getting some suggestions in my surveys that I gave them, but a lot of the feedback I was getting, which again was intentional, I was making the questions this way for a reason, a lot of the feedback I got was very much just how that person felt about what they were reading, how they felt about the different characters, what they were confused about, what they understood. That way I could really see what was landing in the way that I wanted it to. So while there were like a few suggestions in there, my main concern is that more abstract, okay, this is what I got from it, and how do I take that, what the reader got from it, and bring it closer to what I wanted them to get from it. Which there's not like a definite answer there. And that's, I think, why I was struggling with this next part a little bit, is I didn't really know how to take the survey feedback that I got and actually apply it in a physical way. I can't just go from what I have in the surveys into writing my draft 2. There's some stuff missing here in the middle. In all of this research that I was trying to do on learning about other people's revision processes, I found a video by Shailene Wrights, and I had not known about or watched her channel previous to this, which is surprising because she has so many subscribers. I'm surprised I hadn't like actually come across her before. But in this video, she was talking about how her brain works in a very linear way. And immediately I was like, all right, I'm so excited to hear what your advice is then, because that's exactly how my brain works too. And so what she did was she essentially listed out all the chapters and all the scenes underneath them, and then bullet pointed under every single scene what needs to change in that specific scene. And that immediately just clicked with me. I was like, all right, I know that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I will leave her video linked down below if you want to go look at that. I'm obviously claiming no credit for coming up with this method. That's all on her. With this direction, I was then able to have an end goal for where all my notes were going. I knew at the end I wanted a bulleted point list. So the first step of kind of interpreting my beta reader feedback is to turn that feedback into a list of things that need to be changed. What I've been doing is I went through all of the surveys that I gave my beta readers to fill out, and I basically just went through everything they said and anything that I saw on there that was a note, not even necessarily them saying, hey, here's a suggestion of what you could change, but them just saying, I was confused by this, or this is how I feel about this character, and if that doesn't align with what I'm intending to, I know, okay, there's a problem there. So I went through all of their notes, and on one Word doc, I basically just listed out in no order or organization or anything, everything that was in their notes that I know I want to change, add, fix, whatever in draft 2. Now I have a full, completely unorganized and haphazard list of all of the things that I know need to be changed about the draft. As I was doing this, I was also adding some stuff of my own that were maybe inspired by some things that my beta reader said, even if they didn't like point it out as a problem. But this list has literally everything from establish how old this character is to make this character less annoying / unlikable, which is something that would take multiple scenes across the whole book to fix. So no matter how big or small the note was, it ended up on this list. The next step then is we have our full list of changes that need to be made. The next thing we need to do is figure out where those changes need to happen. Where in the draft do these things fit? Where can I add the information or the context that's missing? All of that good stuff. But I can't do that until I figure out what my external plot is, or if any of it needs to change. There might be a better way to do this, I'm not really sure, but basically what I did was I copied down the full outline of what draft 1 is, like what is already there, scene by scene. This is the outline. At this point, I'm looking at things purely on a plot basis, so I'm making sure that external conflict is always growing and pushing the story forward. And there were definitely moments that could absolutely be cut on that basis alone. I then looked to my beta notes to see if there were any sections of the book, any particular scenes that felt maybe a little bit boring, that didn't feel like they fit, that gave them a weird vibe, anything like that. And I was expecting there to be like 2 places specifically in the draft that gave my readers that feeling, and no one noted it. Like, no one said anything about those spots, which I found very strange because I feel like they weren't completely right. The second one, there's a spot at the end where I feel like this for, and one of my beta readers said actually the section before it feels like it could be longer, because that section, there's a lot of fun character-y stuff and some dynamics that are shifting, but then they jump immediately into like a travel sequence, which doesn't do any really important character stuff. It kind of drops a lot of that character stuff. That was the closest I got to a note about these sections. I think the reason that beginning section feels like it could be longer is because that section that follows after it just doesn't do the work that it needs to do. I can't remember the specific chapter numbers, but there was a section near the beginning where my main character, Elaine, was that the first name reveal on this channel? I think it was. I don't think I've ever actually said my main character's name, but Elaine was basically traveling on her own and trying to figure out what to do next. There's like a whole scene where she's asking for directions, and then she goes to the next town where she has to meet a guide and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, none of this is actually contributing to the overall story. It's contributing to the logical flow of the plot, but it's not contributing to the story. So I kind of just like reworked that section to combine 2 chapters so that it flows better and is more efficient. If those scenes had important backstory or character development or world building in them, that would be lost. If I cut that scene, I would add to my list of changes to be made, put this somewhere. That way I know to put that important bit of character backstory, world building, whatever it is, somewhere else in the draft, so we don't lose that thing, but we're able to create a plot that just is more cohesive and actually flows better together. In a separate Word doc, I've re-outlined what I want the flow to be, the scene progression to be with that new ending. And so now I've gone through the whole story. I've combined what needs to be combined. I've cut what needs to be cut. I've added the scenes that need to be added. And now I go point by point. I look at my first beta reader note and I say, okay, where can I fix this in the draft? And sometimes it's a one spot place and sometimes it's a multiple spot place, but then I just go into that list and bullet point underneath the scene that it applies to, fix this here, basically. And one example of that applying to multiple places was there's a particular conversation that happens near the end that some beta readers were saying felt too rushed or wasn't, like their relationship wasn't developed enough to have that conversation. So I went in and I was like, all right, where in this draft are these 2 characters going to have like deeper, more intimate moments together so that it feeds into having that conversation at the end better? And I just bullet pointed where I wanted those to happen. I'm not entirely done with this. I have like a page of notes left to insert into my new outline / bullet point list. But after that, I now will have a full, like, comprehensive plan of what I want to do in every single chapter on this document. And that just makes my brain so happy. Like, I can just look at this list and check it off, and it makes so much sense. And it includes everything. It includes the character stuff, the world building, the plot, tone stuff, like, literally everything is in this list. Sectioning my notes out by chapter works so much better for my brain than sectioning it out by topic. The last thing I did in this process was take that outline with the bullet printed notes and do a read through of the printed draft that I have. That way I had that reference of all the changes that needed to be made in that particular scene, and I could read the scene and kind of mark where I wanted those changes to happen. I could mark where I wanted things cut, all of that sort of stuff, just to kind of like be really specific about what and where I wanted those things to happen. I just used highlighters to mark my changes, so green meant that it was good, I could keep it. That was mainly just to like remind myself that the thing wasn't absolutely terrible and there were some good nuggets in this draft. Orange means to cut, it's bad, it doesn't need to be in here, toss it out. Yellow means to insert new information or a new thing that happens, and then pink was to rework or reframe something, maybe to emphasize or mean something new with what's already there. But this now is my 11-page outline of all the things that need to change in every single chapter, in every single scene, and my organized brain just feels so much better looking at a to-do list. As I am working on draft 2 now, I will have this setting next to me on obviously the scene that I'm working on so that I have this bullet pointed list. I also will have my printed draft open to the page that I'm on so I can see all the highlights and the notes that I've made, and then I can just make the changes. All I need to do is just go through the draft and make the changes. So my step-by-step process for going from one draft to the next is finish the draft, figure out who your beta readers are, and send them specific questions about what you want to know. Do something else while you're waiting for their feedback so you can be productive. Go through their feedback to make a comprehensive list of all the things that need to be changed, taking it from that abstract, I feel like this about the character, and creating a specific idea on how to bring that closer to what your intention for the story or the character or the plot is. Re-outline the book based on plot alone, noting any of the important things that you cut. Take all of those specific changes that need to be made and place them in a specific chapter in a specific scene so you know exactly where that change needs to be made. Reread the draft and figure out where you want everything in the list to go, and then start revising. But that is all I have for you today. I really hope that this video was helpful. I know this is the sort of video that I was looking for whenever I was searching, so I wanted to make sure that I was covering it in a way that I felt like I would have liked to see. Hopefully that means that some of you would have liked to see it this way as well. Let me know down below if any of this was helpful or if you do anything different in your draft to draft process. I would love to hear more about different ways to do this, to maybe try out the next time that I'm starting to plan to revise a draft. And I'm sure anyone watching this video will also be looking for other tips or ways to do things. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!